Welcome back to the deep dive. We've got a stack of notes today that honestly reads like a masterclass in crisis management, but it's disguised as a travel diary.
Hmm.
We are looking at a trip that was supposed to be the perfect vacation and how it just completely fell apart before it even started.
It's the classic nightmare scenario for anyone who likes control, isn't it?
Totally.
You spend months planning, visualizing it, building it all up in your head, and then reality just, no. It punches you in the face.
That is exactly what happened here. So
Yeah.
we're unpacking a case study of a traveler and his best friend. They had what they called the Plan A trip locked in. Peru.
The big one.
The full bucket list experience,
Yeah.
yeah. Machu Picchu, the Inca Trail, culinary tours in Lima. And they booked this thing way back in January for an October 2025 departure.
And that lead time, that's really important context, right? I mean, when you book something 9 months out, the psychological investment is just massive.
Oh, for sure.
You're not just buying plane tickets, you're building this mental monument to the trip. It becomes part of your whole year's narrative.
Exactly. It's that light at the end of the tunnel. And then, well, the demolition crew arrived
Oh,
2 weeks before the flight.
oh no.
Literally 14 days out, they get the news. Political instability in Peru. Protests were shutting down the trains to Machu Picchu.
Tourists are getting stranded.
Stranded for days, unable to get out.
And this is the moment where most people just, they fold. You have the sunk cost fallacy screaming at you to go anyway, or you just get paralyzed and think, it's too late to fix this, let's just stay home.
It's a fight or flight moment for a vacation.
Totally.
But this story stands out because of the pivot. See, they were working with a travel agency called Kim Kim. And instead of just issuing a refund, the agency threw a Hail Mary.
Oh.
They said, look, we can't get you to Peru safely. The trains aren't running. But for the same dates and at no extra cost, we can reroute you entirely.
To a completely different country. That is a huge mental shift to ask of a client in, what, 24 hours?
Right. The offer was Chile. Now, the traveler admits this felt like a consolation prize at first.
I could see that.
Yeah, they wanted Incan ruins, llamas. They didn't really know much about Chile. It was just a plan B to save the vacation days. They were basically settling.
Until the agent used one specific word. This is the turning point, right?
Patagonia.
And that's the hook. It's fascinating how a place name can carry so much weight. Chile might just sound like another country on a map, but Patagonia,
It's different.
it implies an expedition, wilderness. It just triggers a completely different part of the imagination.
The source says that one word snapped everything into focus. It shifted the framework from we're losing Peru to we're gaining an adventure.
Hmm.
And that's really the mission of this deep dive today. We're not just tracking a flight path. We want to analyze adaptability, understand the mechanics of mental reset, and look at the layers of Chile that you only find when you stop looking for something else.
I like that framing. It's less about the destination and more about the art of the pivot. How do you turn disappointment into curiosity?
So let's get into the logistics. It was a haul. Chicago to Atlanta, then the 10-hour long haul on LATAM to Santiago.
Right.
But the source notes something interesting about the mood. Usually a forced change like this brings some resentment, you know? You're sitting on the plane wishing you were going where you intended.
Oh, they didn't have that.
No. They describe the energy at the gate as electric. Once the decision was made, all that anxiety just evaporated.
Well, that's a known psychological phenomenon. Uncertainty causes anxiety. A decision leads to action. The brain hates being in limbo.
So it just switched modes.
Exactly. It switched from worry mode, are we going to get stuck in Peru, to anticipation mode, what is Chile actually like?
And when they landed in Santiago, that anticipation hit the ground running. They were met by a driver, Juan. The source describes the drive from the airport as this: literal unveiling of the city.
Santiago is interesting that way. It doesn't give you everything at once. Not like Paris where you see the Eiffel Tower and you get it.
Yeah, exactly. The notes mention starting in streets that looked, rough, worn down, graffiti, stray dogs, that kind of grit. The traveler admits he had that moment of, oh boy, what did we sign up for? But as they drove, the city just peeled back its layers. It transitioned into these vibrant, beautiful neighborhoods.
It's almost a metaphor for the travel experience itself. You have to move through the grit to find the gem. It requires a bit of patience.
And they were patient. They dropped their bags and immediately hit the pavement. Fruit markets, architecture.
Yeah.
They even jumped on a 3-hour walking tour right off a red-eye.
Wow.
But I want to zoom in on their dinner that night. It seems like a small detail, but I think it matters.
The fish restaurant?
Yes. They found this local spot, good wine, great seafood. But they spent the whole dinner watching videos about Patagonia on their phones. The source says, "We were treating it like studying for something sacred."
That's significant. It shows they weren't just passive tourists. They were actively preparing their minds. It creates a sense of reverence for the destination.
Speaking of destinations, the next leg took them to the coast. Valparaíso and Viña del Mar.
Ah, Valparaíso.
The source calls it a living art gallery.
Which brings up the graffiti. In a lot of cities, that's seen as decay, as vandalism. But in Valparaíso, it just feels different. It feels like identity.
Yes. They say it's like the city is wearing its tattoos proudly. And then you have this jarring contrast right next door with Viña del Mar.
The resort town, the garden city.
Totally different vibe. Ocean air, slower time. They visited an outdoor fish market there and hung out with these massive sea lions. And, I mean, these things were just lounging on the pavement. People were stepping over them.
That proximity to nature is a theme that just keeps coming up, isn't it? The barrier between human space and wild space in Chile seems so much thinner.
And that lack of barriers extends to the conversation, too. This is where I think the deep dive gets really interesting. It stops being about sightseeing and starts being about the human element.
You're talking about the walk they took?
Yeah. So, two guys, best friends for 15 years. They take this long walk along the coast in Viña del Mar. And the source explicitly says the conversation shifted. It went from the usual small talk to really heavy, honest stuff.
Sociologists talk about this. When you remove people from their normal context, their job, their bills, their living room, the social script just falls away. You don't have to play a role. You're just...
They were talking about divorce, complicated relationships, love, the future. The kind of stuff you usually bottle up.
And that's the paradox of travel. Being ungrounded geographically lets you be more grounded emotionally.
He says it's the safety of the friendship combined with the anonymity of the place. You can say things in Viña del Mar that you might not say at a bar back home, because back home, reality is waiting right outside the door.
It's a reset button for the relationship itself.
So they have this emotional reset on the coast. But this is all just the preamble. The reason they pivoted, the trigger word, was Patagonia. And now it's time to go there.
The journey to the end of the world.
Literally. They fly into Puerto Natales. The source calls the airport comically small. It's basically a shed with a runway. But they step onto the tarmac and boom, the wind hits them.
You see the mountains.
Immediately. The jagged, unreal mountain ranges are right there. He calls it the edge of the world.
And the immersion is just... it's immediate. There's no gentle transition.
No. They're met by a driver who looks like a casting call for a Chilean gaucho. Beret, weather-beaten face. He didn't speak a word of English.
Which can be stressful for travelers.
But not this time. The source has this great line, "Kindness travels without translation." They communicated through gestures and smiles.
And I assume he took them for food.
Oh, absolutely. They stopped for a ribeye steak that the traveler claims was one of the best of his life. Just simple, massive, fire-cooked meat. It was fuel for what was coming.
Because they weren't staying in town.
No. They drove out to the Rio Serrano Hotel. We're talking gravel roads, open landscapes. And this is where the modern world really gets cut off. They check in, and the receptionist tells them, Wi-Fi is only in the main building. In your cabin. Nothing.
The digital detox. That little moment of panic.
The source admits it was unsettling at first. We're so used to that dopamine loop of checking notifications. But he says it shifted from unsettling to perfect very quickly.
Because it forces you to be present. If you can't scroll, you have to look. If you can't text, you have to talk.
And there was so much to look at. The lodge was a working farm. Dogs, horses, cows. And there's this one story in the notes that really stuck with me.
The foal.
Yeah, a foal was born the day before they arrived. But the mother hadn't survived the birth. And this little creature was just wandering near the humans, looking for attention, nuzzling the guests.
That is so raw. It strips away the Disney-fied version of nature we sometimes get. Life and death are right next to each other there.
You aren't in a theme park.
You're in the wild.
Which brings us to the ultimate test, the hike to the base of Torres del Paine.
The W Trek territory. World famous.
And terrifying. I'm looking at the stats from their day. 14 hours, 46,000 steps.
That's not a hike, that's an endurance event. It's a double marathon of walking, but with elevation.
And they had a guide, Juan Pablo. The source describes him as almost a different species. He asks, are you human? Because this guy is just gliding over the rocks like he's walking to the mailbox.
Local expertise is so crucial there. The weather in Patagonia isn't a backdrop, it's a protagonist. It can change the plot every 20 minutes.
It absolutely did. They started at 7 a.m., gentle start, feeling good, but as they climbed, the temperature just plummeted. And for the final stretch, they had to stop and put spikes on their boots.
Crampons.
Yeah, they were scrambling over snow-covered granite boulders and ice.
And think about that. They didn't plan for snow spikes in Peru. Now they're on ice, fighting gravity. It's the ultimate manifestation of the pivot.
The mental game was intense. The source says every switchback asked a new question. Do you really want this? Is it worth it?
That is the difference between a vacation and an adventure. A vacation caters to you. An adventure challenges you to prove you deserve it.
And they answered the question. They made it to the top. The clouds parted just enough to see those massive stone towers. They sat on freezing rocks eating a simple box lunch. And the feeling wasn't just, wow, pretty view. It was...
We earned this.
Exactly. That earned dopamine. It bonds you to the place and to the people you're with in a way that just sitting on a beach never can.
You suffered together, so you celebrate together.
But the source is honest about the cost. Coming down is painful. The friends' knees started giving out. They had to help each other finish the last few miles.
A full day's work.
The source compares it to returning from war. Battered, feet destroyed. But then they had a 4-course meal and slept like the dead.
And that physical exhaustion, it's actually necessary. It quiets the mind. You can't worry about email when your quads are on fire.
Which segues perfectly into their final segment. After conquering comes observation. The next day wasn't about fighting the terrain, it was about witnessing it. They went to Glacier Gray.
The scale of that ice field is just, it's hard to grasp. It's prehistoric.
The source describes the blue ice, the water. It was like the planet was showing off.
Yeah.
But the real moment came at the Los Cuernos lookout. They saw a condor.
Massive, a 10-foot wingspan?
And they found something else on the trail. The clean-picked bones of a guanaco.
Like a wild llama.
Exactly. Just scattered, no flesh left, just the structure.
Memento mori. It's a stark reminder that nature has its own rules. The puma eats the guanaco. The condor cleans the bones. We're just visitors passing through.
It puts your own problems into perspective so quickly. And it seems like that realization brought a lot of peace. The notes describe them falling into this routine. Hike, come back to the cabin, no phone, just silence and old stories.
That's the benefit of the unplanned trip. When you remove all that noise, what's left is the foundation of the relationship. They didn't need to fill the silence. They could just be.
Sounds incredible. But of course, it had to end. The journey back was the reverse haul. And on the plane, the traveler has this epiphany that I think sums up the entire experience.
What was the takeaway?
He came up with this mantra. Peru was the plan. Chile was the story. Patagonia was the reminder.
Oh, I love that distinction. The plan versus the story.
Can you unpack that a bit? Why do we struggle with that?
Because we're obsessed with the plan. We optimize it, we ensure it, we stress over every minute, we think the plan is the product. But the plan is just a hypothesis. It's what we think we want.
And the story.
The story is the data. The story is what actually happens. And usually, the story is so much richer because it contains all the variables we couldn't possibly predict.
Like the protests in Peru.
Exactly. If those protests hadn't happened, they never would have met Juan the driver, or seen that fall, or struggled up those icy rocks. They would have missed all of it.
They would have had a great trip to Peru, I'm sure.
But they wouldn't have had this story. They wouldn't have tested their adaptability. They wouldn't have that shared history of, hey, remember when we pivoted an entire trip in 2 weeks? That's a badge of honor.
It really makes you rethink how we deal with disruption. Our default is usually panic. We try to force the original plan back into place.
Correct. But this case study suggests that disruption is actually an invitation. It's an invitation to write a better story than the one you outlined. It's the universe saying, I have something better for you if you're just willing to let go of your PDF itinerary.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you, the listener, with something to chew on.
A challenge, really.
Right now, look at your own life. Look at the plans you have locked in. A trip, a career move, whatever it is.
And ask yourself, are you holding on to that plan so tightly that you're strangling the story?
If things fall apart, if the protests start, are you brave enough to pivot? Are you brave enough to look for your Patagonia?
Because usually the backup plan is where the magic is hiding. The backup plan is where you find out who you actually are.
Exactly. Sometimes you have to lose the map to find the trail. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.
And safe travels, wherever the story takes you.